This evening, our gathering has at its core a simple shared principle. That is the embracing of our shared humanity. When we look around and see that there is so much more that we share, that our humanity unites us in ways we can't even fathom, when we see that though our understandings of our origins, our perceptions of our tasks, our willingness to pay the costs of our humanity are different, those differences remain small, because that which unites us triumphs over all. As Jews, we wrestle with our origins, and inevitably we turn back to text. We turn to the words of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. Some of us turn to those words and read them literally. Some of us cherry-pick them and read some words literally and some not. And some of us see the humanity in those words, divinely inspired humanity perhaps, but humanity nonetheless. In the opening chapters of Genesis, we read of the creation of humanity as our ancestors understood it. The text reminds us, God said, "Let us make Adam, man, human, in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." And then God created man in his own image, in her own image. In the image of God, God created them, male and female. God created them. We who hold this text sacred recognize that all of humanity carries within it divinity and sanctity, because all of humanity reflects on the Almighty. We who understand that God had a role to play recognize that we can no simpler reject any one person or any one group without rejecting God, God's self. And so we start with this point of a shared origin, that the other isn't really the other, because the other is still a creation of God. That the other might be different, might look different, might have different beliefs, might speak differently, but they aren't really the other. They are the creation of the same higher being that created each one of us. And so then we come to our tasks. What are our tasks? Well, we Jews believe that we are in partnership with God, that the creation of the world is not yet finished, that we are finishing it, that we work hand in hand with God, that we need God and God needs us. We Jews believe that we have an obligation to do all that we can to make our world more full, more whole, more filled with shalom, with peace. We understand that image of Martin Luther King, so powerful, that of the arc of the universe being long but bending towards justice, sometimes requires us to jump up and grab a hold of the arc and pull it down and bring it down closer to us and bring justice closer to every one of us. That ours is an obligation to act, to jump in, to not wait for someone else, to not wait for God, but to engage ourselves. But we know that in these pursuits there are costs. We know that there are far too many Matthew Shepards and Tyler Clementis in our world. We know that the costs are high. And yet, if we pull back to the concepts, to the thinking, then we can see that the costs themselves need not be high at all. It was Harvey Milk who said, It takes no compromise to give people their rights. It takes no money to respect the individual. It takes no political deal to give people freedom. It takes no survey to remove repression. All it takes is will. Do we have the will to grant to the other that which we demand for ourselves? Do we have the fortitude to stand up and demand that though someone may be different, they too are entitled to the same freedoms, the same opportunities, the same dignity, the same respect that we are? Yes, this task extracts pain and sadness, but the creation of the world is not a simple proposition. And the work that we are doing brings us closer to that Garden of Eden that we started our task with so long ago. So what is it then? What is this embracing of our humanity all about? Is it just maturity? Is it just recognizing that we are adults and that we have rights and that others have rights too, or is there something more? I think the goal involves healing. I think it involves healing for ourselves, acceptance of ourselves, healing for others, and acceptance of others as well. In a sense, our task in being God's partners calls upon us to be both soldiers and peacemakers, to be willing to suffer, but also to be willing to bring disparate elements together. And so as we strive to embrace our humanity, let us turn to perhaps the greatest peacemaker this country has ever produced, and look at words uttered nearly 150 years ago at a time of great conflict. With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us together strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, and I might add, his or her partner, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. When Abraham Lincoln uttered those words, he was facing a conflicted country. Thankfully, we're not taking arms upon each other just quite as much as he saw then. But our country is very much in conflict. And we have a responsibility, we have an obligation to see that we achieve the dream that Lincoln dreamed, that we move forward without malice, that we move forward with charity, that we move forward with a firmness and conviction of the right as we understand it, that we see that we have work to finish and we engage in finishing that work, that we see to it to not just bind our own wounds and that of our community, but our whole nation, that we care for those who have suffered greatly, to care for them and their loved ones, and to do all that we can to achieve a just society, a peaceful society, an open society, to create that vision which came about as our country was born, that all are born free, that all are endowed with rights from their Creator, and that in that understanding, that shared vision, that shared purpose, we can create the world of shalom that is the goal, the dream, the aspiration, and the right of every human being. Thank you.